Hi guys, hello. This is Sneha this side. I am from ITM Skills University and Let's Upgrade. So today we have Faiz Malkani with us. He is an experienced developer, we can say, and he has co-founded Rippl, a gamification SaaS, has mentored in Google for Startups Accelerator, and is also actively involved in a community. He is also actively involved in community management with GDG Mumbai. So I would want you to share your experience from the very start till now, how the journey has been.
So I had a slightly unconventional journey. I started out really early. I was like 16 and 17 when I got my first job.
16, 17, that means you were in your 12th standard.
Yeah,
Wow.
just after 10th. And I was like a hobby engineer at the time, so I was writing code for a living. Did that for a couple of years, but somewhere along the line, I was working with a few designers and I wasn't quite happy with the design I was getting. Something didn't sit right with me. I was in the typical young, I'm going to do it myself kind of mindset. And I tried it out. It worked. I don't think the outcome was great because I had no experience as a designer. But the process is something I enjoyed. Like I really liked doing that. And I think from there it expanded more. I spent more time doing design. Eventually, I got to the point where I was doing more design than development. And then I transitioned full time into a design role. I worked in design for a longer time. Engineering was only a couple of years. Design was like 7 years almost. And at this point, I realized that it's probably an attention thing for me because I started getting bored of design as well. I then moved into a product role, and from there, I moved into a strategy role. So it's been a very all over the place kind of journey. But along the way, not all of these roles were in a traditional employee role because I was also realized I'm not really built to work a 9 to 5. Throughout the journey, while I was doing all of this, I also built and sold a few companies. But yeah, I've seen a lot, had a very, I wouldn't say rich because it's still a journey, but diverse set of experiences.
So you had many roles to play from the very start, from being a designer to actually being a co-founder now.
Yes.
So what would you suggest to these students who are in their very start of their journey?
Education systems, especially the Indian education system, has traditionally been very restrictive in terms of what you should do. With ITM Skills University, you're expanding that. You're letting people explore who they are and what they want to do rather than what they should do. And I think that shouldn't be restrained to just these 4 years. I think even after people graduate and they're in the industry is going to try to force them into particular roles. But it's important that outside of work hours, they still explore things that they like doing. Because it's very likely that where you end up is never where you originally envisioned yourself.
Correct.
Right?
Yeah.
I would have never thought 10 years ago that I was going to end up being a founder who does strategy. Right? I used to love writing code. But if I hadn't taken that first step, if I hadn't done this entire journey that I did, I would have never realized that this is what I prefer doing over anything else. So summarizing, I think I would say that don't restrict who you are. Work does force you to be someone, then explore outside of work as well. And keep experimenting, keep finding your niche. And it doesn't have to be one niche, you can have multiple niches as well. But find what you're good at and what you love doing. The balance of both is typically where you want to end up.
You have kind of played an important role in even designing this the curriculum. I got to know. So you have seen the syllabus of this ITM Skills University's BTech. What kind of impact do you think that after this cohort goes out after 27? So what kind of impact will they put compared to other traditional students?
So I think one area of impact that is overarchingly there here, where I think other students have, and I may be a bit biased here because I was the one who originally suggested, is that most college students who graduate and they start working, college prepares them for how to write code or for how to work. YouTube and other courses prepare them for how to write good code and how to work correctly. What they completely lack is how to have conversations with people, how to say no to your manager, how to negotiate a salary, how to present your work. As engineers, we write code, we sit in front of a computer 9 to 5, but all of these skills are what actually make your career trajectory sharper. Because you can build the best thing, but if you can't talk about them or you can't present them, it's completely pointless.
Correct.
So I think overarchingly, the communication and soft skills part of the course here is going to do a massive benefit for students who go out. Beyond that, what I really like is that it's not just theory that is being taught. as part of the syllabus. We're also being taught a lot of applications of what we're learning. And in traditional education, I feel like that's another massive gap, because the reason students lose interest in what they're learning at college is because they often can't see where this will apply to them in life. They think this is pointless, this is just studying for the sake of it, but it's not, right? All these fundamentals are core on of what of the future skills that will be built on those. And I think that is being disrupted here. Both are being taught, a balance of both is being taught, and it allows students both to teach, to learn what is being learned at the moment, but also see where the learning is going to come into play in their life.
You had an interaction with these students before the interview. So, what kind of energy did you feel while interacting with them?
I think summed up, it was curiosity, because design has traditionally been. So I spoke about design, right? And design has traditionally been a very creative field per se. People have always assumed it's one of those things where you have to be artistic or you have to be creative to understand how design works. I think what we disrupted today was that design is mostly a science. There's a lot of data backing it, there's a lot of theory backing it, there are rules, there are ways to do certain things. And even if you have absolutely zero creativity, just by understanding these rules and these data points, you can be a great designer. Right? Because that was disrupted for the students, I saw curiosity more than anything else. A lot of people who maybe they previously thought they didn't have what it takes to be a designer, and this sort of unlocked this for them, but they were open to explore, they were more willing to see where this field takes them and what it holds for them.
Any advice for them? Because obviously, how we know how technology is actually upgrading itself, like every to an unexpected pace. So by the time it is 27, it will be somewhere else. We have no idea. So any advice for them to be in that pace?
I think the best thing that they can do for themselves is build something while you're learning. And this doesn't have to be a successful product, it doesn't have to be a business, doesn't have to be a innovative idea. As long as you're building something, some side project, some hobby project, you have a pulse on the market, right? As it evolves, as it scales, you're skilling and evolving with it. Sure, you're having a college education on one side, but also having a lot of real world exposure by building something, right? Get it out in front of actual users, see how people react to it, see how they insult it, how they appreciate it, all of that. This will let you not only keep pace with what trends are, but also set expectations of what consumers and people who are actually going to use it expect from what you're building. Just the theoretical knowledge you learn isn't going to be enough. The whole real world is brutal out there. There's a reason 99% of companies end up failing.
Yeah. If we come to the company side as well, so any advice for people who are actually working now? This is for the students, we get it. What about the people who are in the corporate sector or who are in their working zones now?
A lot of people think it's difficult, especially college students also, think it's difficult to find your first job. By contrast, I think the first job is the easiest of all to find. The second job is what's the hardest to find. Because in your first job, you're propped up by your college. You're given the benefit of doubt because you're a fresher.
Yeah.
If you have absolutely no experience on your portfolio, it is fine. You're just expected to have good grades. You're set up for success. Maybe you struggle a little, but that's okay because everyone struggles. But that second job is the most difficult of all, because once you're done with your first job, you've spent your 9 to 5 or 9 to 6 working. You spend another couple of hours around that commuting to work. Nowadays, it's still better if you have work from home. But otherwise, you're commuting to work, you actually have a life outside of that. In this entire process, you spend no time upskilling or learning anything outside of what your job needs you to do. Assume you're a backend engineer, all you're learning is backend code. You're not exploring anything else.
Yes.
And because of that second job, when you go to interview, you only have the skill set that your first job demanded of you. I think it's important that people realize that. They realize that when they go out there, they need to have a very marketable skill set that is adaptable to what the next company needs, not just stuck to what the earlier company demanded. And to do that, you need to constantly learn and constantly evaluate what you need, where you need to go, what trends are, what people are interviewing for. Even if you're not looking for a job right now, right? Just see what job interviews right now are asking for. You'll understand what the market needs and where it's going. And once you have that insight, you'll be able to learn and upskill.
How was your time from first to second, the journey of yours, like first to second job?
I was talking about this earlier during the conversation as well. I've had the privilege of never having actually interviewed for a job because I'm very active and involved in the community space. The tech community building, I think, is a massive value add for people. Because of that, I have networked a lot, and I've always tried to talk about my work. That today also done that over the years. Putting yourself out there and getting brand value to your name is a very underrated skill. It's picking up quickly. A lot of people are You see these pseudo LinkedIn influencers, especially, who are just putting content out there. Do that, but also put out meaningful content. Build a brand around your name. That is something that I wouldn't say it was purely my skill. It was also luck in a lot of places, but it's something I did really early on, and because of that, that first job to second job transition was easy. The first company that I worked at, it was a friend of the founder there who was hiring, and I could just make that switch seamlessly. But it was only because I talked about what I was building throughout that first job journey.
So technically, if we have to put it in words, for students and even for people who are aspiring to go ahead in technology industry, so networking is very much important for them.
Yes.
I would want to know that how we are doing collaborations, like academics and industry people coming here. So, what do you think? Is this something very impactful for the students?
I think these industry collaborations and getting people who have done it out there is a massive value add, not for the reasons that people think initially. Because you know what's going to happen, you're going to have a lot of people who are coming in here who are telling you, this is what I did, this is how you should do things. I think it's very subjective, because how you should do things varies vastly based on what industry you're working in, what kind of risk you can take, what your income looks like, what your family looks like, how much are they willing to let you go take risks. What you should do is very subjective based on all of that. But people coming in here also want to talk about what they did wrong, the mistakes that they made, the failings that they had, where their journey went off path and they didn't expect it, and how they dealt with all of that. I think learning from those failures, from those mistakes of what people have gone there and done, is a massive value add, so that because you don't make the same mistakes that they did. Knowing what not to do is infinitely more valuable than knowing what to do, because, like I said, that what to do can change with circumstances.
As you have been a mentor for Google for Startups Accelerator, so what kind of issues the startup have faced in their initial time, and what advice would you give to it obviously depends on what kind of issues they are facing, but what is that common mistake they do?
So I think most founders, myself included, we tend to go in this mindset of, I have this idea and I need to start building something. And you go into the rabbit hole where you're hiring, you're spending time building, you're visualizing how the product is going to be, figuring out how you're going to market it and sell it. And in all of that, you start to forget about whom you're building for. You forget your audience is needs to be involved at every step of the process of building. Going into a silo where you build for 6 months and then came out and showed something to someone doesn't work, because either they've forgotten about that initial conversation they had with you, right? Or they found an alternative, or that need doesn't exist anymore, or their outlook has changed. I think what most founders tend to overlook but should be done is, while you're building, constantly have conversations with your target audience. Even if it's not a ready product, even if it's just a couple of screens, show it to people, get their feedback on it. Right? And when you're showing it to people, make sure that it's indicative of people who are actually going to pay for your product when it launches. Showing it to people in your circles, showing it to people in your co-working space, showing it to people who are going to not give you real world feedback is doing more harm than good. Pick someone who's absolutely no ties to your product, who can be brutally honest and tell you that this is bad, because that will put you in a direction where you're going to succeed.
Technically, the feedback is very much important in a startup.
So feedback in multiple ways. So one is feedback of the right people, feedback in the right context. If it's something that's going to be used like Google Maps, right? You're using it out there in the world. Don't take feedback in an office environment. That's not where people are going to use it. So in context, right audience and right demographic as well.
Next, as you are a part of, you are a community manager at GTG Mumbai. So how do you think that it is important for the students to get involved in these communities?
So I was mentioning this earlier, I will just repeat it. I've had the privilege of never interviewing for a job because of making the right network connections, right? I think that value add is massive for everyone. I know a lot of people within my community who have landed jobs and who have made connections just by showing up every month for a meetup. Like 3 hours once a month is not much to ask for. Sure, even if you hire in commute, 5 hours once a month is still not much to ask for. But the value that you take away from being consistent at these events is you get to meet people who are in higher up places, who have connections, who will be able to help you in ways that you may not know right now, but will matter in the future. And if you try to approach these people, take like a startup founder, right, who's coming to speak at a community event, try to approach them online. You'll have so much red tape that you will give up. If it's a very successful founder, you'll be sent to their assistant. If it's not a very successful founder, you'll still have to schedule a calendar invite, send 3 emails before you get a response. And then you'll probably be able to land a half an hour conversation in between their schedules, right? Here you're getting them their undivided attention on a weekend where they're not otherwise occupied, willing to chat about anything that you ask them. Accessibility to people who are not typically accessible is another underrated thing of community that I think a lot of students can also benefit from.
One last thing I would want to know, if you have to give suggestions to these students that after completing their 4 years, what they should start, they should go for a startup or something to get an experience, they should actually go ahead with at least a 2 years of job.
I think this will vary a lot based on the kind of work environment a student prefers, and most importantly, and this is not talked about enough, the kind of risk that you can afford as well. Students are going to come from very varying backgrounds, right? Some people are going to have the financial backing of their families who are okay with them not making significant money for 1 year, 2 years, however long. Some students are going to come in with the background of where a family needs you to start working immediately, right? Neither of this is right or wrong. It's just very different journeys that people can have. Factor that in, because we tend to think of entrepreneurship and startup jobs as very glamorous. We forget the reality, the risk factor is very high. Yes, you will learn a lot, but at the cost of stability. So look at your background, look at your journey. Ask yourself, right now, do I need stability or do I need learning, or can I afford the risk of this? It's completely okay if you work for a few years and then dive into this when you're in a more stable environment. It's also okay if you can afford the risk and dive right in. Don't worry that if you take up a job, you're going to be late to the party or you're going to have like a disadvantage towards people who started early. Because even those couple of years at a job are going to teach you a lot that people at startup are not going to learn. For example, if you look at anyone who's worked in a startup all their life, they're not going to understand things like processes or protocol or doing things correctly. They have the typical just do kaise bhi fast and get it out there mindset. And it's great, but in certain ways. Corporate role is going to teach you processes, talking to users, doing things correctly, taking your time. And that's valuable as well, right? So both paths have value. Take a decision based on your background and your outcome and what you're looking for in life. And don't worry that either of them is the wrong path or that you'll be late.
This is one of the great responses I've got for this question. It was great having a good session with Faiz Malkani, and thank you so much.